Live.
Yo, 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 what's up everybody, and welcome to Vancity Beats, Eats, and Moarrr! Yes!
Yes!
What's up everybody, welcome. This is episode 18 of season 2. My name is Jamal, and today I'm really excited because we are in the studio of ZULA, also Zulajewelry and Design, and I'm really excited because we're gonna get to know ZULA today and also get to know about their work and their collections. Your work serves as a bridge to connect people to Earth, the cosmos, and their truest self. So I'm really excited to explore those themes and showcase to everybody watching what that looks like in terms of the expression of your work too. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We are on the unceded and stolen lands of the Coast Salish people, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and we're very grateful for their stewardship, respect, and care of the land and waters since time immemorial, so that we could be here today expressing ourselves and our creativity. So, ZULA, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
The land acknowledgement, my work comes from the land directly speaking to me. So, as I share today, you'll see that, the land speaks to me, and you'll see that in my work. So I'm excited to share that with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very much the land, but also the earth, like everything that surrounds us, beyond the buildings and things that are human made too. So I'm really excited to dive into that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into making jewelry?
Ooh. Well, I've always been like a really creative child and a magical child growing up. And I was always like hanging out under trees. Not a lot of kids like to play with me, so I would just like imagine my little worlds, like play with leaves. I was really into crafts.
Yeah.
And painting and all the things that little kids do, right?
Yes.
I'd like find cute little buttons and string them onto colorful string and make a necklace. But it wasn't until like after high school, I was working at a record store and my time was kind of ending there.
Mm-hmm.
And then my friend was working at a bead store, and she's like, why don't you come and work with me? And I was like, cool, yeah, I'll come and work with you. I'll learn how to like do all the endings for the beaded things properly. And then we were like teaching kids and like kids parties how to do it. And then we were like just a bunch of girlfriends working this like bead store and having so much fun and making cool jewelry for us to wear. And it was like the early 2000s, so like the turquoise and carnelian jewelry was really hip to wear, and like we were all in it. And we were like, and then we like started selling at craft fairs for fun.
Yeah.
And like we were like just like this girl gang like selling like beaded jewelry at events, and we started doing festivals together, and it was just like this cool cooperative, like this hobby business. And I got into like I was always going after acting and wanting to learn to act and like working on theater projects and stuff, but kind of like the side hobby business was always beads. And whenever I was like worried about rent or whatever, someone would call me up, be like, oh, I need a necklace for my girlfriend, and I'd be like, cool, I can help you. And then I'd have money for rent, while acting didn't always like provided way less income than the beaded hobby stuff.
Wow.
So then, and then like acting kind of got tough, like, and I ran away to jewelry school because I figured, well, you know what? Like, if I started doing jewelry kind of like full time, and then maybe acting could be my hobby, and I just swapped those two things over, and then I learned how to work with silver, and I learned how to set gemstones. Maybe I can make a bit more money. And then I left jewelry school and kind of never picked up acting. Like that kind of creative spark was fulfilled with jewelry art, and the expression is like full and alive and like fiery, and it kind of goes into all these territories. Like I think what was fun about acting was that like I got to explore all these different characters and their lives, and through my jewelry art I explore different archetypes and kind of like an aesthetic idea around an archetypal idea, and it reflects in my spiritual life as well. So so that's kind of the
it's so cool.
Shortish story of it. But yeah, things have fallen in and out of my life kind of guiding me to jewelry, because I wasn't like, oh, I want to be a jeweler. Like, I'm good with my hands. I'm a creative person, like always. But it was just kind of lined up that this was the thing.
I mean, it's really cool to hear how it started as like just a hobby thing you were doing with your friends.
Yeah.
But then eventually grew into something that you decided to pursue fully, and also that you feel fulfilled from it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That transition.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were like, you knew you were like a magical child.
Yeah.
How did you know? How did you feel?
How do you explain it? Like life is magic. Like, I don't know. It's like I would get lost in these fairy tales and in these storybooks and be like, oh yeah, that's how things are. Like, I don't know, like Harry Potter learning how to use a wand. Like, it's like, yeah, of course. Like, I don't,
yes,
like,
yes.
I don't know how to explain it other than like, I knew that things were beyond this physical realm. There was the physical realm, and then there was like this magic of nature and like spirituality and like, yeah, but like, how would I like speak that?
Yes.
I kind of knew, and I believed in magic, and I believed in specialness and the secret garden, and like, you know, like,
yeah. I mean, I think that's as when we're kids, like our imaginations are so active, and like what you mentioned about like believing in that too. I feel like when we were kids, we believed the world in our head, or the what we imagined could be. So
and I think like, and you know, there's people that talk about like, oh, but then as we grow up, we get kind of like this kind of magical thinking gets kind of punched out of us, or like taught out of us. And I think once some friends asked me, they're like, oh, but like, how is it you do what you do or whatever? I'm like, well, I think I'm really connected with my inner child, and like I refuse to let that magic and that belief and that idealism be like taught out of me or whatever. Yeah. Although, you know, sometimes I find myself like doing it to myself, but then I have to like catch myself and be like, no, I do live in this realm, and I do take care of my inner child, and it's the part of myself that's very free and joyful and has ideas and can play. And I think as adults we tend to like not allow ourselves to play and imagine and kind of just play around with bits and bobs, whatever that is in your life, right? Like just kind of that, you know, I kind of sometimes call it like stare at the wall time, you know, like do we allow that in our lives, whatever that is for you?
Like kind of daydreaming or not
Daydreaming.
really doing anything specific.
Yeah, like watching the clouds in the sky, like drift, like, and then like what kind of pops up in your mind around that, you know?
Yeah, observing nature
Yeah.
or the natural world around us.
Yeah.
So as a child having this magic and you saying you're connected, you know, you stay connected to your inner child and stuff, and you also mentioned how spirituality is really important to you. So in terms of how did you remain connected to your spirituality, remain discovering your spirituality as you grew up, I guess?
Well, I think there's like points in life where you forget because you kind of have to do like the worldly things. But I found that like one big point for me was like I lost my hair to alopecia, and it was kind of like a wake-up call for me to like I was always like reading. I was into yoga when I was young, and I was like into yogic philosophy and taking meditation classes when I was like 14 or whatever. But then like I was reading all these like thick books on spirituality and yoga, and it's like all these like heavy concepts, and it was just, I didn't quite, like I knew all these ideas, but I didn't quite know how to apply them to my life. I was just like a little spouting yogic knowledge, but I wasn't necessarily like digesting it or like living it, or have, I know, when you're young and a teen, it's like you're full of ideas, but you haven't lived life to like explore these ideas. And I feel like aging, you kind of gain wisdom with life, and then all these kind of these spiritual philosophies or ideas, you can kind of be like, oh, this is where this kind of idea comes in handy. And I've like nothing really to like explain that idea, but like, yeah, like aging and wisdom and being like, oh yeah, the like, so I don't know where to go from there.
What about the experience of alopecia, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, so I think I was in a time in my life where I had really low self-esteem, and I always felt like there were great things for me, but I didn't quite know how to express them. And I feel like I was kind of holding myself back, and I didn't I didn't have the confidence, and I didn't know how to speak with confidence or use direct language, and I didn't quite go deep into myself to understand myself, and I felt like I started losing my hair, and it felt like a signal from the universe to take a good hard look at myself and kind of explore all the spiritual ideas I was exploring, but like in a deeper way, and in a way that was like mine and like for myself, and what's my version of that. And yeah, like I could, there was these moments where I just felt like, I mean, losing hair as a woman, there was a lot of like identity crisis and like gender confusion, and like what now, and like am I employable, like, but it was kind of like a signal like, okay, you're no longer employable. I mean, this is like early 2010s, so it's like the job market was different. I don't know how people are being employed now, but like it didn't feel like I could go get a job as a bald girl. And then also, yeah, it felt like, okay, well, universe, like, okay, so you're guiding me. Okay, you're an artist. You're not employable. Okay, cool. Like,
yeah.
And then it was like, okay, take a deep hard look at yourself and like grieve what you think womanhood is, and like yeah, and just explore like gender expression and what that is, and like how do I dress myself, like, and so yeah, like I can talk about how my different jewelry collections like express these different ideas. Like, should I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because that's like, I mean, it's an experience where it almost sounds like you lose a grasp of what you think is holding you down, or maybe what you think is right or acceptable.
Yeah.
And that like shedding and that vulnerability sounds like kind of what you had to face.
Yes, I had to like, yeah, because like when you're bald, you're like vulnerable to the elements, and you can just kind of think of that in all different ways. And then it's like, okay, then how do I build a shell of truth around myself that like I am soft and vulnerable because of how I look, but I also had to grow this confidence that didn't allow others to like energy to like come into me. It's almost like, yeah, which like connects. So let me just go through some jewelry that like connects these ideas.
Yeah, let's do that.
So so yeah, like when I was going through my hair loss and I went through a big heartbreak as well that like kind of shook my self-confidence, I found myself turning to nature, and I found myself going under a weeping willow tree, and like the branches, these are the branches without the leaves, these are the little buds that kind of spring into the leaf. And I would just hang out under this tree with all these like branches all around me, and I just kind of felt like I was cocooned by the tree, and it felt like I was getting these kind of healing vibes and this love, and it was like impregnating my heart, and it was really, really kind of showed me that like nature's got my back. Yeah. And then when I was talking about like being very vulnerable and like kind of like, okay, now I'm bald, I usually would wear like cute little dresses and be like very feminine, and I was like, oh, like yeah, like maybe I can't be so feminine with a bald head. So I was like, okay, well, how do I dress now? So actually, a friend who's an artist, she was dealing with a different type of alopecia, and one day, like when I was losing my hair, I was kind of losing it on the sides of my head, and it was like thinning and thinning and thinning, and then it became like these bald patches around my ears, and then just kind of thinning. And then my friend just looked at me and she's like, oh, you look kind of like punk ass. Like, you look like really cool. Like, you almost look like you have a mohawk. And I was like, it kind of woke me up to like a different idea. Like, oh, like maybe I could kind of go with this kind of punk rock look. And so I was like, my other friends treated me to like, they took me to like old school barbershop, and I had one of those old school like
the razor,
like shaves, and it like cleaned up my. So I just had like a clean mohawk.
Yeah.
And it just and I was like, oh, okay. And then I started like dressing different, and then I'm like, oh, but then what's my jewelry gonna be? And I had all this material just in the studio. I just collected it because I thought it was gonna be like, I don't know, just handy material. Sometimes you need acrylic to make molds in the studio.
Yeah.
And that's where these kind of neon triangles came out of. Like, neon love came out of me trying to figure out like how to dress myself as a bald person.
I mean, and so this is acrylic?
This is
the
acrylic.
Material?
So this is a type of plastic. And I started with just like when Sears closed down, they were like selling off all their like fitments from the store and like
Yeah.
all the kind of supplies they had.
Oh,
so
wow.
they had stacks of all this plexiglass, and I was like, just another name for acrylic.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I need acrylic in the studio. Why don't I just grab one in each color? That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then it was just sitting around, and then I was like going through this process, and I was like, oh, like I'm really feeling, and I was really exploring kind of like the cosmic realms at that time. And I was like talking to friends about like alien beings and like star people and like what's out there and do they have a message for us. And I was like, you know, kind of more into the benevolent idea of like, you know, like starshine coming down to earth and like kind of inviting us to like, yeah, just being that glow and that goodness and like be good for each other on earth, because sometimes we forget and we're like little rebels on earth, and can like little children, can we be smiling and playing with each other, and these kind of colors evoke those ideas. So yeah, and then like during the pandemic, the hearts kind of came out of it, and then I was kind of playing around like last year. I mean, this collection's like 10 years old now, so, you know, it's been an evolution. So then it even like, how about we put a bunch of hearts together and they make flowers?
And even the shape inside is a star.
I know.
From just the hearts.
I noticed that afterwards.
Which is incredible.
Yeah. So it's like, you could play around and see what happens. Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. Also, just back to the bracelets. So you used branches from the willow tree itself?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then how did you turn them into these bracelets?
Shall I show you?
Yeah, or if you want to, is there...
Okay, so there's like another
Okay,
idea.
We'll do that after.
So it's like, okay, so I'm bald, I'm vulnerable to the world, like, I feel like everybody's energies is, like, coming at me, and so I was, like, starting to learn these kind of spiritual protection practices. So it's this idea of, like, creating a shield. So you kind of see, like, these kind of shield-like shapes, these kind of warrior vibes here. And so I was learning these, like, you can create like a spiritual bubble of light around yourself, and you can think of it as like a little soap bubble or like golden light or white light or sparkly bits kind of going around like the edge of your body. And you can kind of do this as something like before you go out into the world and feel like people are kind of sucking at you or people are kind of putting their stuff on you. And so, yeah, I was like going through this phase where I was like gaining my self-esteem and kind of like being my own person and yeah, and I was going through these protection practices. And then I was like exploring this idea of like, yeah, like what are these shields we put up, and like, can these shields be made with love as opposed to fear? Because if we're creating shields like with fear, we're like ready to fight and we're ready to say like awful things towards other people, and
like almost like a defensive
thing.
Way,
But is like, can defense be beautiful and loving? And it's like for yourself, and like, you know, people talk about creating boundaries and like, you know, this is for yourself and because you love yourself. So
it's like a protection spell.
Yeah, like
for yourself.
Interesting. Like a little love bubble for yourself. A little love shield.
Yeah, that's
so beautiful. Yeah, that's my shield collection.
Cool. And I mean, in terms of some of these ideas that you're sharing with us, you know, they draw from like occult ways of thinking, kind of, which is like beyond science and religion, kind of more mystical or outer space, the idea of life beyond like what we can explain. Yeah.
Were but you then drawing if you from that? Exactly, and then there's like, I don't know, in another life I'd probably be a mathematician, and like because there are like mathematics that explain all these
absolutely,
ideas.
Yeah.
So like that'd be really cool. But yeah, not so much the occult, but like definitely kind of the laws of nature and the universe in the benevolent sense. So yeah, that's where these ideas come from, and they come from yoga. They come from most religions in the depths of their philosophies. You'll find these ideas. So yeah.
Cool. And is there a name to this collection, or?
This is Shield Collection.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have one more.
Yeah, there's.
Or a few.
I mean,
more,
there's a few. Yeah. So you were asking about like the nature pieces. So like for example, yes, in February I go out and collect these branches before they sprout into the leaves, and I actually just wrap them around themselves, and then I make a mold of them, and I actually do all the casting in the back of the studio here, which is cool. It's all in-house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited to go and walk through your studio space and showcase all the tools.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, maybe can you tell us like from which trees, or like what was the source material?
Yeah, sure. So for like, I work with different trees, but mostly you can see cedar, western red cedar here, and it looks different and all kind of.
Wow.
The branches look different, but what I do is I do like one-time molds, and then I cast them, and then you can see like each little branchlet, like I match them to each other, but they're all from individual branches.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
then, for
all different.
example, like, here's a root. Ooh. If we can get it. Yeah, here's two little roots. So obviously you can see how different they are. They're cast in bronze.
When you say cast, like, is the actual root or branch in it?
No.
It's just...
Not anymore.
It's the shape.
It's the metal replica of the nature.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so this is solid bronze. This is solid silver. I do these like hoop earrings, the cedar. I call them sacred cedar. I do leaf imprints.
Yes.
People have been loving these for years as well.
Yes.
This is copper. Yeah.
What about the piece you're wearing?
Oh, this is cool. This is a sequoia cone, and this is Baltic amber. So it's got like, and Baltic amber is from my homeland. I'm from Poland, and it's the tree resin of trees that are from like 40 million years ago.
Whoa.
So this is like the fossilized resin.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, ancient trees from my homeland, and then, you know, pod of tree from here right now.
Wow.
And it's like, I don't know. For me, it's like super powerful. I made this collection of Baltic amber and like tree jewelry last December, and I just kind of kept this one for myself. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like from your ancestry to your present.
Yeah.
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 It's beautiful.
Thanks.
And,
and I have some pieces here too.
Yeah, let's go for a little stroll through the studio. How long have you been in the studio space?
I think 9 years. And yeah, I love it.
Wow.
I love my little space here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of natural light.
Yes. And you have the space to have all these cool tools.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as you go deeper, you'll see more and more of like my personal workspace.
Okay, can you tell us a bit, like, what is this?
This is a polishing motor here.
Yeah.
That kind of just juts into this cabinet.
Okay.
And you can see there's a lot of dust in here. So basically the cabinet keeps all the dust inside, and I could poke my hands in here, do the work, and then this cabinet kind of sucks all that kind of dust out into the cabinet. So, yeah, then there's not all this kind of stuff in the air.
Yeah. What
yeah.
about, and then what about this red one?
This red one?
Yeah.
I'll turn it on.
Okay.
You can see how noisy it is. So this is a tumbler. I'll show you.
Oh,
I've got
nice.
something in here.
Cool.
So basically, I use it to harden and polish the jewelry I make. So a lot of the jewelry I make is like super textured and has all these crevices in it. And if I just kind of put it, like hand polished it in that motor, like I wouldn't be able to get into all the crevices.
Yeah.
So I have this kind of steel shot in here.
Whoa.
So it's soapy water with this kind of steel shot.
What's shot?
Shot? So it's just like the shape of this stuff.
Okay, okay.
So it's like these little balls and rods
Of
steel,
Yeah.
and they're like massaging these earrings
While it spins. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so it smoothens it out
Yeah,
in every angle.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, so there's a lot of like crevices in there, and it'll
Yeah.
get into all of them.
Wow.
Yeah, it probably has a few more hours to go to get these like bright and shiny, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing us that.
Yeah, it's fun.
I didn't even know what was inside. All right, what else do we got? What about this?
So you were asking like when what happens. So when I'm working with the nature. So for example, so I'll have the nature bits, and they'll be just like this, but in their like kind of wood form.
Yeah.
And then I'll attach them to like a base like this.
Okay.
And then I'll put like this kind of, what do you call it? This is a flask.
Okay.
And then from here, I'll make like, it's kind of like plaster. So it's kind of like pudding.
Okay.
When you work with it, it's like a gypsum product. So it's like, and then I pour it all the way around.
Yep.
And then from there, I'll put it in the oven. So this is a kiln, but this will be gone by then. I'll put it, and then it burns out all that natural material.
Wow.
It takes like a day and a half, and then I'll take it out. I'll vacuum out all that like ash that's left from the wood.
Yeah.
And then I've got a perfect negative place to inject the molten metal to like make the exact replica. So that's what happens from that.
Wow.
And then how do I do that? So here, this is centrifugal casting machine. So basically it's on a spring. So I'll just demonstrate with one. I usually do three. So that force is really strong. I'll just take this out because that's a counterbalance.
Yeah.
So basically I would be using tongs because everything's hot when I use it. And I'll stick it in here. And then if you see in here, there's like, this is a crucible. So that's where I would melt the metal with a hot flame torch. And then here's the thing. When I'm ready for it to like inject all that hot metal into I just do that.
And then
but it goes real fast.
And then the force?
And the force just pushes all that hot metal into the hot mold.
Wow.
And then I just like, and then from this, I'll put it into water and it just kind of cracks everything.
Yeah.
And then I can like start pulling these pieces out and like cleaning them and polishing them.
Wow.
And, like,
that is so cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool process.
That is such a cool process. Thank you for sharing that process.
Yeah.
And I mean, like it's I love because you walk through a studio space, you got people's doors, but you don't always get to see beyond them. So this is a really special opportunity to see into your workplace and to see all these cool tools that you've accumulated where like this is not typical, like where it's taken you, how long has it taken you to get this whole setup?
I've been collecting over the years, but I think definitely I started collecting in my like first year of jewelry school. Like I knew I was like gonna be wanting to do this. So like I was like, there was like jewelers that were like selling off stuff they didn't want anymore or retiring. So I was just keeping an eye out and collecting.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, since like always.
Okay. All right, cool. And then here is the work desk.
Yeah, this is my workbench. So it's a kind of North American style jeweler's bench.
Okay.
So what makes it North American? Most jewelers have like a little drawer. And then this is kind of like your kind of resting your resting area. So you would like hold whatever you're working on like against this, and then you do like, for example, like if I wanted to like kind of make this little cedar and just kind of polish, so just kind of smooth out the edge here. This is a file. Then I would just do it like this, and then I support my hand here, and then any of the filings just drop here, and then I can collect them and I can get them refined, so they go back into the metal cycle.
Cool.
Yeah. So
and then you'll reuse them for other pieces, possibly.
Exactly.
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And this is like,
So-
from what tree is that?
So this is cedar. So this is how I collect it. I go on forest walks, and I collect the cedar that's been like wind blown off the trees. So I'm not like pulling it off the trees.
Yeah.
Like I really want to do everything super respectfully and with prayer and with thanks. And so I collect what the wind has offered. Yeah. So you just saw how I used the flask there.
Yeah.
So then this is what it looks like when it comes out, like once.
Whoa.
So out of the flask, right?
After
so
you've
this is
casted
metal.
it?
Like
Yes.
touch it.
After
It's wet. It's just water.
Yeah.
but-
After you've casted.
and then you can see it's like a little bit of that plaster stuff is kind of still on it. So with that, I would take like an old toothbrush
Yeah.
and like just a rag, and just like I'll be just hanging out and just like cleaning this stuff off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, that takes a bit of time.
Yeah.
But then it's fun to like, I'll show you this like, do you want to see the torch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
So like jewelry making is pretty like cool alchemy.
Yes.
So I'm working with the elements.
Yes.
So I'm working with wood, which is the nature.
Yep.
The twigs and things, and then I'm working with metal, which is the mineral realm, and then I'm working with fire. Thank you to fire. So I use a propane oxygen. So I just added propane, and now I just added oxygen
Okay.
to change the flame.
Okay.
And then I could add a bit more propane, a bit more
Oh,
oxygen.
you can control it.
Yeah, so I've got two little
Cool.
dials there. And then here, I'm just like bringing it to a rosy color. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that means I'm annealing the metal.
Okay.
So that means I'm softening it.
All right.
So basically, I'm realigning all the molecules in the metal. And then a little bit of that remnants of that gypsum product,
Yeah.
that's gonna get snapped off when I put it in water.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's sizzle.
Sizzle. Okay, this is gonna pop. It's just the oxygen. I always kind of get ahead of myself and it pops. So then from there, I'll just put it in the pickle bath. So basically,
Pickle bath.
yeah, it's basically a jeweler's term. I forget what the like. There's a chemical compound name for it, but I forget. But jewelers just call it pickle. And basically, all the oxides that I've built up, like the blackness, because silver you normally think of as like super shiny,
Yeah.
right? Like silver color.
Yeah.
But when you were looking at that, you were seeing black,
Yes,
right? And
yeah.
that's the oxides.
Okay.
So that's like the copper oxides, the copper coming to the surface. And that bath that pickleback cleans it off.
Okay.
So it's basically like stripping the copper oxides off the metal. And so you do that because then it's like a clean surface for you to work with.
Okay.
So any kind of things like soldering, if I want to put two parts together, they have to be super clean to like attach themselves together. If there's like that dirty oxide part in between them, they won't attach. I don't know what else you would like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, so in terms of like your relationship with trees,
Yes.
you've mentioned, you know, your process for foraging, and your connection with nature and the natural world, and that's part of the intention of your jewelry as well, is to bring people to that connection place. What's your connection with trees? What have you learned from having that connection with trees and other natural elements?
What have I learned? Like, I believe that trees and nature and rocks are our teachers. As humans, I feel like we're just sometimes really silly and we do things like, I don't know, sometimes I wonder where society is going. Like I feel like we're getting off the ball like a little bit. We're getting away from like goodness and working with the earth as opposed to thinking of the earth as something we just extract from and like treat other people badly because of it. And I feel like if we can kind of slow down and listen to the trees, meditate, breathe deeply, listen to our own thoughts, get into our hearts, like that's what nature has to teach us. And all of my jewelry comes with like a little card that explains the message from the tree. So the trees started talking to me and they were like, hey, listen, if you're going to take our branches, like there was this, it was like 8 years ago. It was super dry summer. And I usually collect in the fall, like the branches to get ready for like Christmas sales. Cause I'm also like trying to make a living.
Yes.
You know, I'm not living in perfect harmony like a fairy sprite in the woods. Like I live in the city and I have to make a living and I have to pay rent and it confounds me sometimes, but that's the reality. And it was so dry, like all the cedars, like whatever I was finding from the wind was just like dried up and thin and not like suitable for me to work with. And I was like, I went to these cedars that I collect from and I was like, hey man, like, can I cut your branches? Like, I don't want to do this, but like, can I do this? I really need to make a living. And they're like, sure. And they started talking to me and they're like, sure, you can cut our branches, but we have a message. Can you pass this message on to the humans that will buy your jewelry? And to anyone. But so then I started, before I collect branches from different types of trees, I like sit down and like meditate or just like, I just like hang out and I see kind of what drops in. And so when I give you a piece of jewelry, there's like a little card that comes with it that explains. And then if you're interested, you could just go to my website. It's all there. You can just kind of explore the different messages of the trees, and it's really quite simple. And it's like, even if you look at like the scientific kind of like cedar, for example, like the oil in the cedar, like that aroma is what makes that wood like not rot. So there's this idea that cedar has this healing and like this kind of everlasting quality to it. And like back in the day, like cedar canoes were made, like cedar long houses, like cedar was the tree of life.
Yes.
And it is the tree of life to these lands here.
Mm-hmm.
And its aroma, its branches are used for cleansing, and they have this like purity to them. And so that's what's offered in the messaging behind these. So it's in different ways, in different forms. These messages are out there. I'm just interpreting them and sharing them. And like, so each tree I work with has a different message. And some of them are more playful. So yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. And it's also, I think that it's not everybody can be at that place where they actually can tune in and listen to nature in that way, where they're receiving messages or in tune in that sense. So
You can.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, how can people do that?
Okay. So next time you're out and about,
Yeah.
and you notice, like, perhaps you're attracted to some kind of tree,
Yeah.
or plant, or rock. So then you just like, I don't know, do you meditate, or
Yeah.
do you like do deep breathing?
I do love to breathe deeply, and yeah, my like meditation is something I'm still working through to
Okay.
figure out. But yes, I
Yes.
do practice the act of
Yeah.
meditating.
I mean,
yes.
I'm still trying to find my
Yeah.
way through meditation and trying different techniques. But
Yeah.
basically, you go to some being that you're attracted to, and then you can, and then you might find a position, whether you're standing under the branches, whether you're sitting against the trunk, whether you're looking at the leaves while you lie down. You'll figure out kind of what position you want to put yourself in, and then you just kind of let yourself just breathe and kind of like start feeling your body, and like start getting into your senses. Like, let yourself kind of dissolve out of your brain and like let yourself be in your senses. Like, you know, like, what does the ground, and if you're like laying down, what does the ground feel like on your body, and what are the sounds? Are there birds chirping? Are there cars driving by? Like, do you hear the wind in the leaves? And then what other senses? Like your smell. And you just kind of drop into your senses, and then you breathe. And then if you can start feeling like any kind of sensations you have inside your body, like your heart, kind of like this area, like your torso. I like to go into my heart because I've been like learning about different heart meditations. But you can kind of go into your torso. There's like different energy points here, and then you can just feel. And then for you, like, I hear words on the inside of myself, but you might feel a sensation. You know, you might get an idea. You might get an inspiration for I know you're interested in music, so you might get a melody that comes to you, or just let it come into you in whatever way it is. And so for me, there are these words, and the trees have decided that they want to work with me, and they're like, hey, this is the message we want to share. So basically, it's like you just gotta slow down and give yourself the time to hang out and breathe and let yourself believe. So if we're gonna round it back to let yourself be a child playing with the tree or the rock or like in the meadow, or
and believing in that connection that is there. Because we're all made up of the same things that nature is made from. So inherently, you know, we are connected.
We totally are. Just like different molecular combinations.
Nice. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. So we are nearing the end, kind of. But we talked about your different collections, and one that you showed us was the Neon Love connection. And I think it would be really cool to show people what you've also installed in this space from your Neon Love collection. Are you down to go check it out?
I'm very happy to show you.
Okay, so we're gonna go out the studio. Oh yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what's in here
these
before we go
are
out?
like my different jewelry kind of art pieces. This collection is called Creative Juices. It's based on different genitalia and joyousness and celebrating bodies and juiciness and creativity and all that means. And this is a triptych. It's called Assisting Nature. These are casting of branches, so they're actually solid bronze now. And it's just this idea of how much can humanity inject into nature. Like you almost see like there's like this bionic branch with kind of, I was using kind of the neon acrylic idea of like, of that material, like, you know, how many hearts and sending love and light can we do to like nature? Like, is it actually helping? Or can we work with nature kind of in a more holistic way as opposed to just like, I don't know, just covering things up with the way we think they need to be. And then these are fairy essence catchers. So they're wands that catch fairy essence. So you can just have a little bit of that magic towards you, because you can't actually catch a fairy. You can only possibly catch their essence.
Okay. What else are you exploring in your work, like that you're working on next? I really love working on custom jewelry for people. Like if people want to go like deep into their stories and their personal symbolism, like that's really fun for me. And we can work with gold and gemstones and family keepsakes, and like that's really cool. Nice.
Like making really, really special like memorial pieces or wedding jewelry, or just like, I want to go into the fine realm of like beautiful, exquisite gold jewelry.
Cool.
Because I have a lot of ideas.
I did see on Instagram that you shared a wedding ring that you made recently, which is gorgeous. It's like a flower with a gemstone at the top.
Yeah, it featured a Canadian diamond, and it was done in white gold with purple sapphire dewdrops all within the petals.
Wow.
And it was made for an artist, and it was really inspiring working with the partner, and we did it all in secret, and she didn't know.
Surprise!
And it was a really cool surprise.
Wow.
And it was really cool to make it for her, because I knew her art, and I kind of consumed it while I was creating the piece.
Nice.
So,
That cycle.
That cycle is there,
And also, I just wanted to mention that your work is also on exhibit right now on Granville Island, right?
It just closed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We had an art show with the Vancouver Metal Arts Association, and we did an international art jewelry show of contemporary jewelry pieces, which are more sculptural in their identity. And it was really cool. It was called Evolving Spaces. So It was kind of exploring the idea of like being in liminal space and being kind of in between one space and another, and kind of that awkward stage in between. So there was some really good pieces in the exhibit. And actually these are the pieces that I had in that show.
These ones here?
These ones here. Yeah.
And that necklace is Amazing.
So these are called Ancient Future. That's the line, and it's all based on these three-dimensional triangular shapes. And then the material is slate with pyrite in it. So it's got that kind of mineral realm to it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have one more question before we go to the special corridor.
Yeah.
A lot of the work a lot of what we've talked about in your work, it's brought up ideas of like celebrating what's around us, celebrating ourselves. Like, how do you celebrate yourself and at this point of your journey?
Ooh, that's like a good question. It actually brings me to tears because every year I choose a few words as like my words of the year. Like instead of resolution,
Yes, yeah.
I have a word of the year.
I do that too.
Yeah. So one of the words I chose last year was acknowledgement.
Okay.
That I like give myself credit for things I do. And last year I celebrated, so one thing I do is acknowledge myself, and I have to keep reminding myself to like, hey, I did a good job.
Yeah.
And I've started like buying myself presents.
Nice.
Or taking myself for fancy tea.
Treat yourself.
Yeah, or like go for like a hot chocolate or something. And then the other, like last year I celebrated 10 years of being self-employed, which I really feel is like a big thing in the city of Vancouver.
Especially like fully.
Full-time, like
full-time.
No jobs. Like,
yeah,
like I did a door job for one night and made $40. But like other than that, like I've been like fully self-employed like for 10 years. It's just like and then what I did,
congrats, well done.
I took my biggest supporters and people that like clap and listen to me, and I treated them to a chef-made dinner at Acorn.
Wow.
So Acorn's like the fancy vegetarian restaurant in Vancouver. So yeah, and they made like these platters of beautiful food we all got to like explore and try.
Wow.
And so that was like a big deal. So yeah, I felt like a baller.
I mean, that's incredible and worth celebrating. 100%.
Yeah.
So that's really cool that you did that.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we?
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Ready?
Here we go.
So this is my little hallway of neon love. So these are some of the shapes that I work in. And then this is the neon love installation.
Wow.
So it takes up the whole stairway. So it's like almost 2 levels.
Wow.
And it's UV reactive plexiglass or acrylic, and it's just so happy.
It is.
It's like coming down from the cosmos, reminding you to be happy.
Very playful. And I remember initially when you installed this, it came with an audio portion as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, the space is always being transformed, so the audio is gone.
Yes.
But whenever I do sell a piece of Neon Love jewelry, it comes with a special Neon Love activation.
Okay.
And it's really cool. Do you want to do it with me?
Yes, I would love to do it.
And you can do it too. Like it's like you don't need to have a Neon Love piece. We just like activate the space.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like a repeat after me thing.
Okay.
And yeah, we could just start by taking a deep breath in.
Okay.
And normally you have a piece with you, so we'll just adapt the words to say, when I think of this piece,
when I think of this piece,
I remember to choose happiness.
I remember to choose happiness.
I follow my creativity.
I follow my creativity.
And I believe.
And I believe.
In neon love.
In neon love.
And we reach up into the cosmos. We bring down the neon love beams. We twinkle them into you. You are neon love activated.
Woo! Thank you, Zula.
You're welcome. So yeah, that's the neon love
That's
activation.
amazing. Thank you so much for taking us through your story, your journey, and also your workspace, your different collections. This has been such a pleasure. We've been joined by ZULA, Zulajewelry and Design, also Neon Love by ZULA. Where can people find your work and you?
Oh, just look me up, zulajewelry.com. Neon Love by Zula on Instagram and Facebook, and then Zulajewelry on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, just zulajewelry.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jamal. Thanks everybody for watching live or watching on the replay. This has been episode 18 of season 2, Vancity Beats, Eats, and More! Peace.